I did want to talk about. It was in light of Ukraine doing the drone attacks on Russian on bombers, and just not about the war. I don't give a shit about that, but more so how do you defend against it? And I know there's, from my I don't know, biology degree experience with who doesn't know shit about this, I would imagine the initial things are, I don't know, either like a localized EMP, a jammer, like an IED jammer, but so you can't control. I mean, I know presidential security is like multiple tiers, so I would imagine much closer. It's probably like, I don't know, like a portable Sea Whiz or some high volume, lead farmer type thing. And yeah, that's what I was thinking of, because everyone kind of looks at it as like, how would you stop a drone attack against a VIP? And I think the answer is almost in the question. It's like, well, against a VIP, you're gonna have a ton of assets deployed to defend, so it's probably not easy to get them with you're not in the catch 22 is like, well, Tommy, how would you defend against them? Well, first you'd say, I don't know, go indoors or have a shotgun. But then again, like, who is expending a bunch of assets to take me out with drones? So I think it's, again, from my totally unknowable thing, I think it's kind of the answer's in the question. You're not going to send $1 million drone swarm after me. You're just going to shoot. If you want Tommy Carrigan dead, you're just going to shoot me when I'm at the grocery store. If you wanted to use a drone swarm against a VIP, that VIP probably has either government or private, security. That is, they're probably monitoring the airspace. They probably have layers of early detection, either localized or general EMPs, localized or general jammers. Worst comes to worst, some high volume, I don't know, AI guided machine gun. That's what I would imagine. We don't even have to stick to this topic. We can talk about anything, but that's
That's
one thing I was thinking of. Yeah.
yeah, no, actually, yes, actually a good topic. Let me expand on that a little bit. So, in the early days when the drones, I know where the drone technology started. I'm not going to mention all that shit, but I remember in the early days, um, I was at a site one time in Afghanistan, and the guy that I was working with had a drone, a legitimate drone. A drone. It was they were using it to do one, surveillance, and two, to drop like leaflets and stuff for psyops campaigns, right? And so this particular drone looked like a bird, and it was electric. It had no gas engine, nothing like it. It's just an electric bird. It literally looked like a hawk when you looked at it from the ground up. It looked like just a
Yeah.
hawk up there going
DARPA
around.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, man, this would be kind of cool if it had a Bombay door on it, right? It would open up and drop all the leaflets, right? And so I thought, well, how cool would that be if I could rig it with a hand grenade, and then the door opens and you drop a hand grenade on a target, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was the first guy to experience with shit like this, but I did it, right? So I tried it. And what I did was I took a hand grenade, and I attached a line to the inside the bomb bay door. And then what I did is I rolled the hand grenade onto the line, rolled it up into the bomb bay door. And then once it was in, I pulled the pin, the pin out, the cotter pin out of it, right? And then closed the bomb bay door. So basically, the only thing that was keeping that thing from exploding was it was wrapped in the wire, and then when the Bombay door would open, it would fall out and unravel, and then pop the spoon, and within 4 seconds it would detonate. So I had to make sure that the bird was low enough that that when it dropped the grenade, it would land. Within 4 seconds it would hit the ground or be a near surface burst, right? And so let's experiment. So we did. And so I remember we rigged it all up, and we flew the bird out of our office, and we set it with GPS coordinates as well. So basically it flew a pattern, a box pattern, went out, made a left turn, another left turn, and then it would fly right across us, and there was a range out there. We're just going to drop it on the range and see if it works, right? And then the final leg that was programmed in it was returned back to us, right? So he's going to fly a box pattern all the way around on the third leg. It dropped the hanger, and the fourth leg it come to us. Yeah, we messed up. So we send the bird out. It's flying. It goes to the third leg. It starts the bomb bay's door open. The hand grenade comes out, and ding, 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 ding. It's just
Doesn't.
hanging. It doesn't unroll. It's just hanging there, right? Like what the hell, right? So we had a malfunction. Um, everything worked except for whatever reason on the bottom it got knotted up or something and it didn't come undone. And here's the mess. The worst part. The worst part was it made its final fourth leg back to us. We were going to crash into the compound with it, land in the compound with a live hand grenade, right? And I'm like, holy shit, right? And we're freaking out. And so, luckily, the pilot had an override mechanism on it. He was able to drive the thing into the dirt and blow it up into the desert sand, right before it came into the compound. So that was my first experience messing around with drones. I'm not a drone aficionado or nothing like that, but I really like drones. I think drones are eventually going to get banned for personal use. I'll tell you why. The technology is going really, really fast. So I see the day where they're going to go, no private citizens can own a drone without a specific license and serial numbers and all kinds of crap, right? It would be
Yeah.
like owning like C4, right? You can't have it unless you're licensed for it. And I'll tell you why. Here's my thoughts on this. So using it for example, VIP targeting. Hell, you could use it now and target your neighbors if you have the ass at them, right? I mean, you could make a drone lethal, very simple. Okay. Now, as far as technology, how do you stop it? Well, here's the problem. A lot of drones now. I just saw a video of a Russian drone, sorry, Ukrainian drone flies by a Russian, basically a Russian position. It goes past, and it was being flown by wire. It was actually had a,
Hmm.
yeah, it was a
Yeah,
wire
like
guided,
the
right?
tow missiles.
Exactly. And so when it went by, they ran out with a pair of scissors and they cut the line, and the thing crashed, downrange and blew up. So you can't defeat that with a jamming system because it's fiber optic. How do you jam a drone like that? And by the way, these things can go a long ways with these fiber optic. I mean, it's like a strand of hair that goes a million
Yeah.
freaking miles through the bushes and trees and shit. It doesn't matter if it gets tangled up, it's still going to send the signal, right? So how do you jam something like that? Because it's not vulnerable to electronic jamming. The only thing you can do is interfere or interrupt the fiber optic cable. So so coming up with the counter drone technology that requires, some type of EMP or jamming systems and frequency,
That's where like the Sea Whiz would come in, would
right?
right? Because that doesn't. But who the has a Sea Whiz around them?
Well, and here's the other thing, right? Is um, so that's one way to do it. Another one is you could fly a drone just using GPS coordinates, right? So there's no transmission back and forth. It's just flying off of grid or geo coordinates, right? Basically, and it's guiding itself in. Now, could you stop that one? Possibly. They're coming out with laser systems now that are pretty accurate. They can actually pick up on a drone and or aircraft and heat it up and burn it up and blow it up before it makes it to its target. But it's going to be a big challenge. And I was watching Trump when he went to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you saw the video of the convoy. Holy cow, the motorcade. Man, I mean, he's got a huge motorcade, but I noticed one of the vehicles had a jammer. You could see
Hmm.
you, you saw the dildo sticking out the top of the roof, right? And they're omnidirectional. Usually they're frequency hopping, or they're sending out several frequencies to jam IEDs and things like that. Now, I don't know if they had a counter drone capability. Maybe that's what that antenna was. I don't know. But think about this. If you watch the video in Ukraine and Russia, they're using these small ass drones that take out some of the most advanced
Uh-huh.
battle tanks and penetrate their armor, just blow them to smithereens because they're using shape charges, right? And it
Yeah.
doesn't much to put a hole in the tank with a shape charge. Imagine now in the US, you have the drone, and you're smart enough to build a shape charge, which is not hard, by the way, and you fly that thing and land it on top of the beast, Trump's freaking limo, when he's inside of it, he's done.
Done.
Nothing you can do about it. How are you going to stop it? How do you stop that, right? So this is why um, I think the day's going to come where we can ban. Dude, I'm always sitting around thinking about devious shit, not because I want to do it to people, but I'm always thinking about what's possible because as a security consultant, you have to anticipate the next
Well,
paradigm, right?
well, that's also what you. That's the amongst other reasons. That's the lethality of Delta, right? Is that you're always find an opening. Red cell teams.
Exactly, right? And so and then have to figure out how would I mitigate something like that, right? And so I could take a drone. This is crazy, right? I mean, this is just some shit I've been thinking up, right? I could take, first of all, cyanide, all right, or strychnine. Okay, it's very easy to make. You know where you get it, right? You can find it, you know, you
Cyanide's in
can,
apple seeds.
well, it's in bamboo. There's all kinds of stuff that has it in it. And there's a way to ferment it and, and distill it and bring it down to its, lethal form. And just think about this. If I took a drone, just a regular old drone, and on the bottom I attached some type of a long needle, okay? And then I tipped that needle with cyanide. Okay, and I had a target in mind, some dude I don't like, right? And now I can fly this drone for 30 minutes. I know round about where this guy is, right? And I just put the drone in a hover pattern until I see him, and then I fly the drone right into him,
Hmm.
stab him with this needle and cyanide, and then I withdraw the drone and fly away, right? So he dies from a massive heart attack. Nobody knows it was cyanide, right? That's crazy stuff. This is movie shit, but I mean, this is very possible stuff like this, right? Mounting drones with weapons, hand grenades. I already did that, right? Shotguns, things that go boom, right? So, man, there's so look, the guy that just in where was it, Las Vegas? He freaking torched all those people with a homemade flamethrower. He's using alcohol and the squirt
Oh
bottles,
yeah,
Molotov cocktails. Think about that for a minute. You could do the same thing with a drone, man. So this is why I think in the long run, eventually somebody's going to go, you know what? We can't have these things out there uncontrolled like that. This is a problem, man. It's a problem because you could rig these things up to do all kinds of terrible things to people, property. You can fly drones into hell, a gas station pump, right? Freaking light the whole place on fire, I mean, I've thought of some really dark shit on another level. I'm not even going to give anybody any ideas if I say this out loud because it's scary shit, man. I could literally, if I wanted to, with one drone, I could literally shut down a lot of things in America, like major things like travel. I
sure.
could really put a hurting on the country with one little drone. And it's not because it's going to do a lot of damage. It doesn't have to do a whole lot of damage at all. It just has to scare the hell out of people. That's terrorism,
Well,
right?
when the only reason I remember it is because of this. November 1st, 2013, I was interviewing at a med school in Miami, or not Miami, in Los Angeles, and that's the day some dude walked into LAX with an AR and killed a TSA agent. I think he was killed pretty quickly after, but it doesn't matter. It shut down the whole city, and because LAX is so huge, it shut down international travel. There was a notable divot in the market that
Yeah,
year because of that. And that's one guy at one airport.
yeah.
Do it at LAX, do it at Atlanta Hartsfield, do it at Boston Logan, do it at JFK, do it at Chicago O'Hare. And then it's not even like, okay, you do all those once. Well, you do it at one airport, a second airport, a third airport. Now every other airport's starting to freak the fuck out. You don't even have to do anything for 6 months. You just wait. Let them piss themselves.
Yeah, there's so many ways we could disrupt shit. And it's so simple that this is why I hate to say this, but like TSA, you brought it up. It's a joke.
Yeah, no,
Okay, they got this big force out front, we gotta search all your shit, yeah, blah, blah, blah. You think any terrorist in his right mind is gonna come through TSA with weapons and explosives? There's other ways to do this. Very simple ways to do this, right? So what they're trying to do is make Joe Public feel good, oh yes, we're safe because they're doing their job. No, they're not. It's a facade. It's bullshit, right? I mean, I'm not going to go into how I would do it, but look, if I can think of it, a terrorist can think of
mm-hmm.
it. Anybody with a live brain cell, if they sit down long enough, they can figure it out, right? It's not that damn hard. So what they're trying to do is placate the sheep, right? Rather than, being honest, going, yeah, this is still vulnerable and we have to do more. And there's a lot of infrastructure in America that's vulnerable. And there's stuff that's not even being put on the news that's happening, it has been happening. And I think it's deliberate because if America find out what was really going on, like, what the hell, man? So, yeah, even like, last time we spoke a little bit about the aliens. I want to know more about that with Clemens when he gets on. But Clements. But why wouldn't they tell us about the drones? Think about that for a minute. I
Yeah.
mean, at the UFOs, right? Well, if they tell you that UFOs exist, that would really upend everything, religion, everything, morality. Because if you go, well, shit, I'm no longer constrained by this idea that if I kill somebody, I'm going to go to heaven or hell, right? There's a God. It's like, oh, apparently there's not a God because there are all obviously aliens, and that's never discussed in the Bible, right? And we're the only, and so you go, you know what? I'm just going to kill Joe Blow because there's not going to be any consequences other than man's law, but natural law is like, okay, he's fair game. And so I think that people will actually lose their mind, a lot of people, and they'll just go do what they want because they know there's no consequences, at least in the afterlife, and so I think that's one reason the government wouldn't tell us is just to keep order, keep order. But on the other hand, here's how I feel about it. I think as an adult, the government is not my parents, and it's not their place to tell me what I should or shouldn't know, especially when it comes to something like this. And I feel like I should know the truth. Yeah, there's some things I don't need to know for security purposes, so other innocent people won't get hurt. But outside of that, there's some things I think I should know. But going back to the original topic, I see the day where they're going to ban drones. I don't know how you can not ban drones eventually because
They will.
yeah, people will use them nefariously. I mean, it really will. I mean, if you think look right now, you got all these freaking criminals in Los Angeles, right? Invaders protesting and right fighting, ICE and law enforcement out there, right? They're taking over the streets. We literally have an insurgency. This is an insurgency. We have insurgents plus their cronies, their friends and family and sympathizers fighting against American law enforcement, fighting us, a sovereign country, and they're saying no, we're not leaving. We're taking over, right?
Kill them all, dude.
Well, you know what? What I won't be surprised if I see it, whether it's now or in the future. I can see a large group of people like that sending drones
Sure.
in law enforcement, right?
Hit the sheriff's office, hit the police lines.
How do you stop it, man? Dropping Molotov cocktails on freaking cops, man. You're catching them on fire. You burn up their cars. You're flying into the police stations. That day's coming, man. You don't have to be a scientist to figure this one out. This is the average kid out there knows how to do this shit. And so that's why I said it's gonna get banned. As much as I like drones, I just don't know how we would be able to function safely in a society that's everybody's got drones will be like a firearm.
I was gonna say there's gonna be some Reagan-esque thing where the NFA they're gonna ban Uzis for civilians or silencers or whatever it's
Yeah.
coming, and it will probably be preempted by something like that. And I was just thinking back to earlier before I forget about wire guided. There was also something I think they developed in the 50s or the 60s called ATRAN. I don't know what it stands for, but it's just photo recognition. So you just upload a topographical map of something. You don't need GP. You don't even need a satellite uplink. You go when you see that hill, turn left. When you see
Yeah.
those trees by that cabin, turn right. So you wouldn't even you could completely nullify all of that. And
Makes complete sense.
yeah, and then another thing I was thinking of when you're saying all the spots that could be hit, there's always the huge defensibility of the United States has always been two oceans, and that you would give ample warning if, say, a formation of German or Russian bombers is coming, and then that was kind of voided with intercontinental ballistic missiles, but that was countered by sure you could launch them from Beijing and hit us, but we're going to launch from here and hit Beijing, and there's the tit for tat. This is kind of a I don't know a loophole. Like you could the untouchable, American homeland. Now you don't need a bunch of Russian bombers that are refueling and flying over the horizon for 18 hours. You just launch 50 drones from the back of a U-Haul. Go hit like a substation. You don't even have to, don't even dream big. Don't be like, we're going to hit the White House. Take out a substation. Take
Yeah.
out, take out a power station in Atlanta in August when it's 110 degrees.
Wouldn't be hard to do.
No, not at all.
Wouldn't be hard to do, man. Yeah, like I said, if you put your mind to it, you can come up with a lot of ways to nefariously use drones, man. And so, Ah, man, we're in a place now where we have allowed somewhere around 30 million. I'm going to call them what they are. They're criminals come across the border, right? They've come across the border. Not all of them are looking for, um, a better life. A lot of them are here to do bad things to us, right? The Chinese, they've got their cells here. The Iranians, many people have come across this border. A lot of terrorists have come across this border. They're going to raise hell from within. That's coming. And now we're going to be so preoccupied with trying to find these guys, counter the threats within. We're not even paying attention outside the borders, what's going on. Or we might have to do both. But just imagine what you could do just with a drone, on a mall, a shopping mall, or a concert, right? Freaking, I mean, god dang, man. I mean, they just arrested that Chinese couple that came in with that was it that food fungus, plant fungus. It's like super bad, right? If it gets loose, it's gonna just wipe out all our crops and shit. And they caught them infiltrating with that. Man,
Jesus.
what other chemicals or biologics can you put on a drone and basically sprinkle it over a crowd of people? Um, I'll give you an idea. Fentanyl, right? So fentanyl is dangerous even to the touch. This is why a
Hmm.
lot of cops go down with heart attacks. They're fisting somebody in the touch, they're like, and poop, they're out, right? And that's why they kill or carry what's it called? I had some medicine
Um,
with
uh,
starts with R, I think.
fuck.
Anyways,
No, it's,
yeah,
God damn it.
it'll hit me in a little while.
Yeah, it's gonna bother me now.
But But yeah, I mean, imagine that you can sprinkle a bag of fentanyl powder over a crowd of people. Holy shit. What's it going to do then? Because it doesn't take much. Um, uh, Fentanyl is 30 times more potent than heroin. Uh,
Narcan. Narcan.
Narcan, there you go. Yeah, Narcan, right? It's drive you
Yeah, no, but
crazy.
yeah, fentanyl, carfentanil, isocarfentanil. I mean, they have
I say
stuff that they
Ray-Ban,
Ray-Ban aviators. No, but it's the fentanyl will do it, and that wouldn't even easily be tracked back to the nation state that did it. Fentanyl. Yeah,
and
Mexico, China. Who the
yeah,
fuck knows?
yeah. There was a concert a couple years ago in Texas. There was actually two of them, one I think in San Francisco, one in Texas. And there was a stampede, right? So basically what happened was some guy goes, I got stabbed in the neck with what felt like an insulin pin or something, right?
Yeah, no, that was I remember that. That was in 2021, I think. I can't
Yeah.
remember. I remember that though. Is multiple people reported being stabbed by syringes.
And or just going down, right? So think
Yeah.
about this for a minute, right? You could if you took fentanyl and you pulverized it into a powder form and or turned it you added um some type of emulsifier to it, right? You make it to a into a cream, all right? And then you put it so that you've got some, on your outside of your watch, maybe you're wearing some, latex gloves and nobody can see, and you walk by and you just touch people as you're going by with your phone. I mean, your watch, your hand, and they wouldn't even, especially in a crowd, they're all jumping around. You're like, excuse me, trying to get through here, and you're just touching people. Boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, boom, boom, behind you, just dropping out with heart attacks and dying, and nobody would know. And then all of a sudden, people see the panic, the people falling, they start to panic, start running. That's kind of what I think happened. I
Mm.
don't think nobody wants to talk about it. I've talked to a few cops about it, but there are so many terrible things out there that can hurt people, and the only limitation is your imagination, man. How are you gonna do it? So and we've allowed this because we've tolerated behavior. We've tolerated people breaking laws and getting away with stuff. Like right now, we're tolerating all this crap in our country with all these criminals across the border, and we actually have Americans trying to defend them. Like, are you kidding me? They're invaders. You try doing that to their countries and see what happens, man. It doesn't work. That we're the only ones that do stupid shit like that because we got a bunch of bleeding hearts, and a bunch of liberals that feel guilty about something that they shouldn't feel about. And so they're willing to acquiesce to the terrorists just to make themselves feel good. But there's a huge threat on the horizon. It's already here. And I believe you're going to start seeing some terrible things start happening. Probably sooner than later. Everything's here. RPGs, rocket propelled grenade launchers, shoulder fired weapons, explosives, drugs, dangerous drugs, drones. Yeah, we're living in a different era, man, and it's gonna be a different America moving forward.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I think about that a lot in terms of like it can't be stopped, and it's not as suicidal as launching a nuclear tipped ICBM. But you wonder if there is some form of mutual assured destruction, be it publicly agreed upon like a treaty or privately. But if they can do that here, we can do that there. So you almost wonder if there's some sort of like, how come China doesn't do this? They probably know, like, every shipping container that comes in, there might be 1,000 American drones on there ready to, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, how come Russia doesn't just sneak up on our coast and shoot missiles? Well, because we would sneak up on their coast to do it. And it's now
yeah,
that doesn't apply to factions or radical ideologies or terrorist groups. Or they're, yeah, I don't, shoot back. That's what I want. That's different. But I would imagine to some degree there's got to be they don't do it because we could just as easily, fly 1,000 fentanyl laden drones over Shanghai. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. Good point, but
Doesn't really apply to cartels or
I,
something that don't give a
right,
fuck. Yeah.
that's right. On the individual small unit, levels, the terror cell level, it doesn't matter, right? Because they may not be it may not be state sponsored. It may be acting on behalf of their own ideology, and so they don't give a shit, right? What they want to do is scare people and influence policy and things that benefit them, right? But I mean, the world is just upside down right now. I mean, on so many levels. I mean, we've literally got Americans defending criminals that have come across our borders. And
And they're sending the Marine. I just looked it up. They're sending
yeah, the
National
Marine,
Guard and active duty Marines.
yeah, and yeah, and already there's assholes out there going, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't waive posse comitatus." You know what? You can do what the hell you
It's
want
like
if you're
who
the
gives
president
a
of the United
yeah,
States. You know what? And as an American, I'm like, send the dogs to war, man.
yeah.
Let them get the
Fucking
devils
do
on
it,
the show and
dude.
get a bite, man. I don't care. They came over
Do
here. They were,
airstrikes. I don't even care, man.
yeah.
But
Um, but
yeah,
we'll see how that turns out. So I guess New York is also brewing up, and there's a couple other cities. They're finding pallets of bricks delivered and left on the side of the road. They're already staging, right? You're pretty sure we know who's behind that shit. Soros and a lot of other people financing this crap. But why is that guy even still alive? I want to know, why is that guy even still alive?
the blood of virgins and the souls of innocents. I don't know. At this point, I don't even.
Yeah, I just why how's this guy still existing? I don't get it. At least why is he still living in our country? This guy's not an American. He's actually openly come out and said he wants to destroy our country, and capitalism. But we're living in some very interesting times, man. And the resources, the weaponry, the improvised weaponry, it's all there. And they're going to use it. Eventually, they're going to use it. And I'm not trying to give people ideas. I'm just kind of throwing out what's already out there, what the bad guys already know. Um, the bad guys know how to do it. The good guys don't know it exists until it's too late. Like, shit, I didn't know they're going to do that. I didn't know they're going to blow up a Hummer, not a Hummer, but a Tesla truck, in front of a, I don't know they're going to use a spray bottle with alcohol and lighter to burn people up. It's like,
Yeah, there's seemingly going to be a 9/11 esque drone moment. I don't see how there's not. And it's not. Yeah, it's not even giving people. I remember seeing on Twitter 2 years ago there was some former I don't know Green Beret guy talking about he's like incendiary grenades, put it on drone, send 500 over, send it over. Wright Patterson. Go take out 50 B-52s. Sure, America has a lot, but that's 50 that's down. Or send them out to you're near Guam. Take out a B2. We've only got about 20 of those. You could start doing some serious
Yeah.
damage. And even if you don't do damage, all the resources that now have to do to bulk up every airbase, even domestically, that would shit up. If you were to do that domestically, it's not even some forward operating base in Kandahar. If you were to do that in, I don't know, like Arkansas or Georgia, hit Fort Benning, 160th SOAR, you could really do some even more than terrorism. That would be a weakening of forces if you were to take down legs of the Air Force. I don't see how we don't have a 9/11 esque. The only way I could see maybe not doing it would be, they say that drone swarms are changing warfare forever. Obviously, asymmetric, like you were saying with the shape charges. A $50 drone taking out a $50 million tank. I would imagine it's there's going to be some adaptability. You could say, how can an aircraft carrier or a destroyer fight against drone swarms? Well, I think pretty easily. You just turn them into drone swarm bases. Put 100,000 drones on an aircraft carrier. That's that's pretty tit for tat right there. If you were to build up that in terms of making it part of policy, like eventually, why wouldn't you just take all the jets off an aircraft carrier? I mean, how much space and weight and fuel does a single F-35 take up versus just racks of stacked drones? And then what is there's like 100 aircraft on an aircraft? You could legitimately put like a 250,000 drones on an aircraft carrier, re-outfit it all with cover the deck with Sea Whiz and jammers and stuff. You could make that thing a machine or fill up a C5 Galaxy with them. If that happens, I could see a drone 9/11 being less likely because not that we're preparing for it, but rather the preparation has become part of the modus operandi. But I don't. I don't see how it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's it's how can you defend against it?
Can't. I
I'm
mean,
a
you
mile
see,
from the airport. I could do it right now. I don't have a drone and I'm an idiot, but I could like right now be like, Dale, where should I hit? Hit that 707. I could shut down. I could make international news in like 30 minutes. Yeah. Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So, if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
That's my point, right? I was going to allude to earlier, but you know, as a terrorist, I don't even have to hijack an airplane anymore. I don't have to get on the
No.
airplane, right? All I have to do is hit an aircraft as it's taking off for landing with a drone with an explosive on it and crash that thing right into the runway or off the runway. Now, what do you think's going to happen? Nobody wants to get on an airplane anymore. Like, hell no. What if mine gets hit with a drone, right? And what a problem that would create for the airline industry. Like, how are you going to defend, right? So now they're shooting down commercial airliners. Now nobody wants to fly. We got drama, man. We got problems. I mean, you could go so far as, hey, fly these drones into on a freeway and start taking out fucking POVs as they're driving down the road, like taking them
Yeah.
out. Like, what the hell, right? You could paralyze our society. You could make it so people are afraid to go outside, to drive, to fly, to travel, to go into public areas because of what could potentially happen. You know,
Yeah, I mean that's COVID 2.0.
well,
Why even hit military bases? Can you imagine if there was 50 random killings over the next week of just random people getting hit with drones?
yeah, exactly.
That
So, you know, I mean, look, 80% of the population when COVID happened went out and got the injections, put the mask on, obediently stayed at home. 80%.
yeah, no, they're retarded. Yeah.
They were just chicken shits, did it, right? So what do you think will happen if this happens? It'd be the same thing, man. Nobody's going to come out. Everybody's fearful. I guess it's legitimate. You should be
It, it
fearful,
would
but
be.
that's the point. The bad guys know that, and that's what they want to do. They don't necessarily want to kill you. They just want you to be afraid, you
And
know?
the only reasonable response would be you'd have to deploy like the National Guard. It wouldn't even be a shelter at home order. It would be like a FAA order, like a NOTAM or something, right? Until they get it under control. Well, now, if you're the government, you could also just do that. And now all of a sudden you have you wouldn't even be wrong to the average person. I mean, you could have plausibility for why all of a sudden, you need Humvees with jammers and guns at every corner because there's a drone threat. And you wouldn't even really be wrong. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't, unless there's, because it does seem like it's almost World War One ish, where like you said about dropping the grenade. I mean, that was the logic with like the early biplanes, where it was like bring up a revolver to shoot them and bring a grenade to throw shit on the ground. The Germans were doing it with the Zeppelins, but there was like this crazy explosion of novelty, and I kind of started to. I read a book last year about it. Around after World War One, in like the 1920s or so, it started to coalesce into a more uniform thing. Nations started building aircraft carriers. They're like, this is the future. They got to be able to carry whatever 100,000 tons. But it seems like right now we're kind of in that World War One, where it's this crazy. Some of those biplanes had like 9 wings. Some of them had two. Some of them had guys up there with machine guns. Some of them were just like throwing explosives at people. I feel like that's where we are right now. We're in this wild, and it was the same thing though. It was asymmetric. You had these guys with a single grenade, flying over enemy lines and tossing it in there, and you were causing absolute havoc. I feel like that's where we are, and it's gonna slowly coalesce, but it might take like another decade or so.
I think what's got to happen is one, we got to come up with a better defensive capability, just on the homeland itself with drones, right? Because I think that's the next paradigm. Two, we've got to be more, there's got to be more accountability. The people need to know you do this, you're probably going to get locked up forever if you don't get killed.
Yeah.
There's got to be consequences for, antisocial behavior, man. These terrorists, these criminals, all these people that are upending our country under the name of protest when it's not a protest. That there needs to be consequences for that and severe consequences. But everybody's afraid to do anything because they don't want to be, like if it was you and me, we just go out and just let's just go out deer hunting, man. Just start shooting dudes and get it over with, right? Because they're here illegal. They're invading our country. They're taking over, whatever. But we can't do that. Nobody's going to do that. So, we're in this weird place where people are getting away with all this crap and there's no consequences. So there's got to be severe consequences. Like for example, Indonesia. You know, God forbid you bring drugs in that country or get caught with drugs. You're done. In fact, there's 98 expats on death row right now for distributing drugs. Not even big amounts, small amounts, marijuana, whatever, right? There's 380 something Indonesians on death row for that. They've already killed 9 expats by gunfire, right? Firing squad.
Jesus.
So yeah, that's a pretty good deterrent, man. Like
Yeah.
I ain't touching drugs over there. I ain't messing around, right? So when you have a harsh penalty for shit, that gets people's attention. Oh, what, you got a marijuana cigarette? Yeah, you're gonna die. So, and let that be the lesson to the next guy that thinks about it. And I think we've got to get to that point where it's got to be pretty freaking severe, man. There's got to be serious consequences. Otherwise, it's going to continue on, and all we're doing, man, is jeopardizing ourselves, our future, our children. We're exposing ourselves, man. And I think it's going to take, like I said, we're going to need to come up with some better defensive strategies, but there's also got to be, legally, there's got to be some other things that we can implement to basically make people compliant, like, behave yourself and stop the bullshit. And oh yeah, don't come in our country causing problems. And we need to vet everybody. Look, how don't you already know? I've already put this out on Alex Jones show. I put this out several times. Al Qaeda's been right here looking for me in my hometown,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're here, right? And we had Joey on your show not too long ago. He was talking about the cartel. They're driving by pulling up to him in his car, going, "Hey, we want that little girl in the back seat. Otherwise, we're going to come and get you." I mean, it's that real now. This is not, well, that's just bullshit. No, they're here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this is very concerning, man. That I would keep wanting to say we didn't do shit. Biden and the Democrats allowed this to happen, right? At the end of the day, they're the ones that allowed this to happen. And now we got to figure out what are we going to do as a consequence. And the weirdest part is, it seems like nobody on the left wants to even stop this shit, right?
No, well, it benefits them.
Yeah. And we need to, we need to treat them, particularly the politicians on the left, actually like terrorists. They need to be held to account, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's a little tangent to the.
No. It's applicable because there's really no point in addressing and identifying the issue if the things that are supposed to be responding to said issue are also enemy assets.
Yeah, they're not.
And what are you going to do? You're going to call the police in LA and say there are riots? You probably have a decent amount of faggot police officers that are like, I stand with, like. So, I mean, the only hope I have is that, Trump has grown enough of a pair that even just based on the first couple months of his presidency, that he's willing to be serious about ICE. That's what you have to have, and it's because that's all it is. Like, no one's saying like you don't have a right to protest, you don't have a right to assemble, you don't have a right to free. You do. You absolutely do with all of those. I mean, I'm in Portland, Maine. I see people marching all around. All like once a week, you see like 100 of them with like free Palestine. Like, I think they're all losers, but hey, God bless. You stay on the sidewalk, whatever. That's great. That's not what I think we're proposing. What we're saying is you have groups of people openly. You don't like that. I saw a video. Like you don't throw bricks at ICE officers and federal officers. You don't do that. That's not your first rodeo. Yeah. That's not. You don't do that the first time. You do that when you've been getting away with shit. You're a spoiled child. A spoiled child. Their first thing, they might take cookies before dinner. By the time you're robbing cars, like you've been doing that for a while. Or you don't rob a car at 7. You rob a car at 17 after 17 years of zero discipline. By the time you're hurling shit and putting, I think I saw putting refrigerators out on the highway to block. It's either you've become accustomed to being able to break the law, or even worse, you've been accustomed to the law not pressing back because it's I don't know, politically advantageous for the powers that be to not harm you. So I mean, I hope Trump's grown a pair since his first term. I mean, like, dude, they tried to blow your head off. Like, dude, roll that. I mean, Bush Senior did it in 1992, right? The Insurrection Act. He did it for Rodney King. Dude, go, come up. Like, go, and because this isn't even a random riot. That's the other thing. Is this isn't a shooting of somebody and they're doing this. This
Yeah.
is in direct opposition to what 80 million people voted for, which is get all these out of the country. So the mandate that you were given through an overwhelming election and sweeping both houses, this isn't a random thing. This is in direct opposition to what people voted for. Button up the border, deport all these. That is so much more in your face. And if you don't, I don't think there's a middle ground. It's if you don't push back, you're a pussy and you've capitulated. If you do push back, it's nature abhors a vacuum and you're gonna come, or power abhors a vacuum and you're gonna come in and be the strong arm. I don't think there's like a middle ground. This isn't a riot where you go just hey, just let it burn out. This is in direct opposition to your core thing. We're gonna we're gonna zip up the southern border and stop all this shit. If you don't push back with the hand of God, I mean, man, you've completely bent over. So, I mean, I hope he does. I hope
Yeah.
he does. And it's because you can't do that, man. Then I know I'm ranting, but there's a difference between protesting and whatever. There's a difference between that and barricading or blockading highways in what the second largest city in the United States. And why are you doing it? Are you mad because some unarmed person got shot? No, 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 no. We're stopping federal agents from carrying out the rule of law that's been the rule of law since the 1700s, since powdered wigs, that you can remove aliens.
Yeah.
Dude, this is like, you have to crush this. You absolutely have to crush this.
And
This
they're
is,
going to inconvenience the average citizen who just mind their business going to work. They're going to inconvenience them because they got a hard on with Trump and the system, right? So that's what pisses me off. If I was driving down the road and I got to go to work and go to the hospital, and I got some criminal out there barricading the road, arms locked, going, we're not going to let you guys by because we're mad at Trump and ICE. You know what I really want to do is get on the throttle and just run them over, man. That's what I want to do. And look, I haven't been in that situation yet, but God knows what I might do. You piss me off, you put a hand on my car, you threaten me, you give me any indication that you're going to do some kind of harm to me and my family, I'm going to kill you, man. Period. That's how it works, man. And what you don't change, you're accepting. And so if we don't change this, we're accepting it. And guess what? Once we've accepted it, there's no going back. How are you gonna undo this thing, man? And by that time the damage is done. So and the other thing that's bothered me is why are we not arresting people like Gavin Newsom? Some of these mayors, that Karen bitch, freaking, that let the place burn down, while she was down in Ghana, wherever
oh
the hell,
yeah,
doing boogie nights. There's got to be some accountability. People that are making these piss poor decisions or lack of decisions, if they cannot be relieved, they need to be fired or, I mean, arrested. It's time to start going to the top and punishing these people and not just put them in jail for one night, and then release them. I mean, I'm telling them, lock them up just like they did the J6 protesters. Lock them up until the next election. Let the next guy sort it out for you, right? I mean, we've got to stop, and this is what the problem I have with conservatives, particularly those that go, we're the silent majority. You know why you're silent, bitches?
it's because
Because
you're
you're fucking
pussies.
scared. You're pussies. That's why you're silent, right? You don't hear the left shutting up. They're running their yaps, and that's why they're getting things done because everybody's hearing them, right? And they're intimidated or being brainwashed with them. So they're actually influencing people with their rhetoric. We just say, "Oh, I'm just going to vote him out." Well, how did that work out the first time with Trump? It didn't work, and may not work the next time. You can't just. And then not only that, so we're waiting for this. administration to start doing things, and not saying they're not doing things, but like, man, when are we going to start arresting these assholes, these bad people? When are we going to start going after people that have lied, cheated, stole, manipulated, maybe even harmed and killed people? Like, why is Fauci still running around out there? Why has he not been brought to justice? Why? We already know the intelligence out there. What, he gets some kind of due process? Like, what process? Till he dies? He's already 80 years old. I don't want to see him die from natural causes. I want to see him suffer, man. Like he made a lot of Americans and people around the world suffer. There's people dead because of this man. There's dead people because this people follow his stupid ass advice, right? Why are we not holding people accountable? That's what I want to know. Why? And honestly, if I was a real tyrant, I would just say, you know what, rise up, Americans. Let's do it ourselves. If they're not going to do it, let's do it. Let's take the law in our hands. Um, that might work out for a minute, but I just don't get it, man. I just don't get it. And is there something else to play here? We know there's a bunch of conservatives that are not conservatives. We know that. We know that a lot of them have been bought, being manipulated, being blackmailed. And they're just kind of like going along, marking time and doing nothing, man. And someday the American people, at least on the right, are just going to say enough's enough. And since you're not going to do your job up there, you know, we're just going to do the job for you. We'll do it our way. That's how this country got founded. We'll do it again. We'll start all over, reset.
I feel like
Uh,
I feel like that's probably coming in California. I mean, right when you look at the forest fires or the city fire, whatever it was back in January, and we now know that they had, I think San Diego or something, some other neighboring metropolis had sent a fleet of fire trucks, but they weren't allowed to come into LA because they didn't pass emission standards. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't know that.
emission standards.
Jesus
The city is
Christ.
on fire. Regardless of emissions, the city's on fire. If you want to be concerned with emissions, the entire city is emitting. So they stopped that though, and they actually made them go and do emissions testing. They all had to go to a parking lot. They brought a little people from the EPA. There's a scene out of the Old Testament unfolding in Los Angeles, and they're going around looking at like catalytic converters and shit. So
Crazy, right?
yeah, so we know that, and that was when was that? That was 5 months ago, a little over 5 months ago, not even a year. You wonder, who's hamstring now. Okay, to his credit, Trump wasn't in office, and when he did come in office, he immediately like wiped all those standards. And okay, sure. You wonder, like, in what way is Newsom or whoever hamstring? Because I know last night the sheriff's department actually started ceding ground. They started pulling back. I don't know shit about law enforcement, and I'm not going to pretend to know. I don't know if that's something you do when the riots have reached a certain size. I would imagine you're only doing that because you know the National Guard's coming. But I mean, if it was anywhere else, I would say that. But looking at California, my first thought is like, they were told to pull back because it's some deleterious leader, somebody in the government, the local, state, federal, whatever somebody wants the riots to continue. Because this is no different than the summer of love 2020. Trump's back in office. Make it look bad.
Yep.
It's no different than that.
Yeah.
I hope he's grown a pair. I hope Trump's grown a pair.
Yeah.
Go start flying in at Blackhawks. Start bringing like legitimate. Start people up. And I don't mean you're not allowed. You're freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. I get all that, and I those are bedrocks of the country. I'm talking about attacking federal agents and barricading highways.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. You cannot do that. Man, you better crush it, because summer 2020 was the last summer of his first term. This is the first summer. You're setting precedent now for the rest of the summer, for the rest of the next 3 or 4 years. Dude, you have got to roll in there with Abrams tanks. Like, Jesus Christ, give them something to cry about. They're already calling you a dictator. Be the dictator they think you are. Like, Jesus Christ, send in a gunship. Can you put less lethal rounds in an AC-130? Can you do that? Can you put beanbag rounds in the in the howitzer. Can you do that?
Like
Would that
one
even
of
work? Has that
those.
ever happened before? Has there ever been a riot control AC-130? I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm rambling about, but I mean, but so what's going to happen is so you're either going to stop this and you're going to quench it with overwhelming force and set the tone. And if you allow it to go on, what I think's going to happen is there's going to be something like you were saying. There's going to be drone attacks. Why
Well,
wouldn't they? Why
already
wouldn't they?
it's already metastasized. It started in New York. Where else? Tampa. They're putting in Bronx on the street. So it's already metastasized. It's already starting to catch on everywhere, right? So this LA thing should have been squashed immediately. What I read last night, I don't know if it's true or not, but I read that the police was told to stand down and not support ICE. Just
What?
you're not playing, right? And so again, came from their higher, people in the fucking in the chain of management. But here's what I have to say to any cop that's out there in Los Angeles, if you're listening to me, right? If you're not doing nothing because you were instructed by that bitch mayor or that asshole Newsom not to do anything, you know what? I would defy that order because in the military when I'm given an unlawful order that's immoral, right, and I'm told maybe to burn down the village with the kids in it, I have the moral right not to do that, the legal right not to do that, but morally as well, right? It's like, no, I'm disregarding, sir. And if you continue to make me do it, I'm going to shoot your ass for it, right? And put you in that village and burn you up. But I think cops should be going, you know what? I'm not going to let fellow police officers get hurt, and get attacked and get overwhelmed because some mayor and some freaking, governor have some type of political agenda they want to meet. No, as a cop, you should go out there and help your fellow law enforcement officers. That's the right thing to do. Damn your paycheck, damn your job, do the right goddamn thing. To say, well, I don't want to lose my job, blah, blah, blah. That's the cowardly way out. All right. Because as a soldier, I would have done the same thing. I would disobey an order if it came to that, and yeah, I might end up in the brig. But you know what? At least I know I did the right thing. I didn't harm innocent people. I didn't let innocent people get harmed by just standing by on the sideline, right? So I don't get that part either, man. If it's true, then why are police officers standing by? Unless, like you said, there's some beta males and freaking, DEI freaking hires out there, which wouldn't surprise me either. But I mean, you see the state of cops today. I don't mean to beat up cops because I like cops, a lot of cops are my friends, but man, look at police officers today. I saw a video again last night. Three cops couldn't handle one dude. One of them was a chick, right? She got popped right in the face, and she like didn't want no more of that shit. The other dude got popped in the face. He had a helmet on, and he's trying to unbuckle his shit. So one more guy's out there trying to deal with it. He's getting popped in the face. He breaks contact, and the bad guy runs away. When you look at the state of our police force today, man, it's pretty pathetic, man. There's no physical fitness standards. There's none of that shit, man. Even marksmanship standards are pretty much zero. You ask that police officer how many rounds you shoot your service weapon for training, and oh yeah, semi-annually or annually, how many rounds you shoot? It's nothing, man. It's nothing like a box of ammo. It's like that's it, you know. But we give them these lethal weapons that we're really not good at, and moreover, we send cops on the street. They're not prepared for the street. They're not prepared to deal with people out there that will kick their ass, And that's what I find really concerning is we've neglected law enforcement. And I know a lot of cops, even though maybe they don't get funded by their police department, but they go out on their own, they work out, they're in good damn shape, they go on their own time, they shoot guns, they do all the things they need to do their job and do them well. But most cops, it's just a job. I mean, it looked like they just left Dunkin' Donuts, they got their bellies sagging over their gun belt. Probably couldn't even find their gun if they needed to, unless they lift their flab up and go, oh, there's my gun. It's crazy what America has become the fattest country in the world. Somebody I just read or heard was watching a podcast, and the guy was quoting statistically, Americans are so obese that we're fatter than American pigs, like literally pigs, swine. Like we outnumber them. What the man? You know what? And I don't want to hear this shit about, that's not genetics. It's basically people overeating. You
Yeah, it
don't
means
see,
you're a you're a lazy pig.
yeah, you don't see this in other countries, and it's embarrassing, man. When people talk about one of these foreign countries, they talk about how fat Americans are. I'm like, oh my God, man! But you can't deny it. I can't. There's no excuse, Americans have lost their way, man. We've gotten used to this life of opulence. Even our poorest people on welfare are richer than some of the than some of the richest people in foreign countries, man. I mean, you know, so we live in a country of opulence and opportunities, no accountability, little responsibility. I mean, you can't get any better than that, other than, you're making yourself fat and sick and stuff. Um, but I think Americans need a freaking wake-up call. It's like, you know what? You guys have just gotten too fat and sorry and lazy, a lot of you. And it's time to wake up, man, because you in a lot of ways they are a disease in that the people that died the most in this country are people who are overweight. Go figure, right? And so what does that do? Strains of the hospitals and the medical establishment, there is a strain that's put on. How come we're not taxing people for that? We're taxing people for cigarettes and alcohol. Hey, why don't we tax your ass for freaking, that goddamn sugar, And oh yeah, you're way over your BMI index, right? So I don't necessarily believe, I don't believe in the BMI, the body mass index. I think it's completely skewed to favor the doctors. Like, and my BMI is like 30, dude. I weigh
Yeah.
180 pounds. I'm shredded.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I possibly, because my weight doesn't fit
Your
my
height. Your
height,
height.
right?
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
No, it's
And
BMI.
yeah, they're not changing. They're gonna change it because it's working for them, right? They can make more money off of drugs and medical treatments, yeah, crazy
The
world we live.
to well, we'll kind of wrap it up with this, but I was just thinking like what's gonna happen with the riots as they metastasize and get bigger. You're gonna reach a point to where they grow in size, right? So it's like if it's a 1 hour riot, you expect X, Y, and Z. If it goes on for a day, you kind of it's not right or wrong. It's just what you tend to expect and believe from a riot. Once it's been going on for a week, you're not as surprised if, let's say, they burn down a mall, right? You'll go, yeah, that's par for the course for that kind of riot. And again, as someone with no military experience, what I imagine though is once these get to a certain size of I guess for lack of wildness, you could then, if you are an external enemy, a nation state, a cartel, you could start shit up under the guise of a massive riot. Now, if you just start using drones with thermite in LA on a random Monday, that looks an awful lot like enemy action.
Right.
But if you were to do it in the wake of a 3 or 4 day riot, you could kind of start to believe that maybe those are just citizens. And
Yeah.
that is how you would circumvent the whole mutual assured destruction. Because now China could say, like, dog, that wasn't us. Your people are going crazy. And it might not be China, but it might be China. Or it
This is
might
why
be,
these control.
well,
It's
that's
a
where you
national
have to crush it. Because if not, you're now creating this puppet for anyone to come put a hand in.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
national security fuck. It's a national security issue, man. When you allow it to go like that, you perfectly described it, man. What could possibly it could be basically a Trojan horse maneuver. We're going to use their riots to um, insert our freaking
Yeah. Why
our
wouldn't you?
act,
Why wouldn't
right?
you?
And exactly. And you know what? It did kind of happen during the 2020 stuff with Antifa. There were definitely bad actors, state actors in there, you know, just like the FBI, in the January 6th stuff up in Washington, D.C. We know they were in there. Now they're kind of admitting it, right? So why wouldn't you do that? That's a great way to accelerate the problem, the violence, the drama, and by the way, you're right. There's a difference between protesting and in a riot. It's okay to stand in the corner, protest, hold your sign up, go, I'm against this shit. Okay, whatever. I don't know what that gets anybody.
Nothing. But
It
it's
doesn't, it just makes them feel good, like, yeah, I'm protesting. But a riot, when you start rioting, you're breaking shit. That's no longer a protest. Okay, that's completely different. That's a violent act. It's a crime, and it needs to be dealt with accordingly and harshly. I would argue with that one. We need to stop that bullshit. It's got nothing to do with freedom of speech. When you start breaking shit, burning shit, threatening and throwing shit at cops, you've crossed that line from a protest to you're full on riot now, insurrection. That's an insurrection. Okay, that January 6th shit was no insurrection, but they like to play it that way because it makes them feel good. Um, But anyways, man, yeah, so you got my drilling up again. Now I got to get out, go out, somebody in the mouth. No, I don't do that. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
that's
Um,
that's my purpose. I get you revved up for exercise.
oh, man, I know, right?
Um,
You gotta get a couple,
but
couple words.
when's I don't know if I can be, you don't know if you can say, but you're going on some bigger podcasts this week, so that'll be cool for people to look out for. When is when's the next book coming out?
Dude, I just went through the final edits again. My co-writer thinks it'll be done. It should be done by the end of the month. It should have already been done, but one thing led to another. It's
Sure.
a good. I read it, the manuscript. You know, we banged it out pretty good. He's a really good writer as well. His job right now is to finish the final edits and add the polish to it, and then what we'll do is register it, trademark and all that, the copyright what goes with it, and then I'm hoping by the end of the month it's got to come out, man. And I say that because some other cool things are happening. One, they're actually making a movie about me. The script is done, so
Let's
they've
go.
already approved the script. They're gonna put another set of eyes on it, but they've already notified me the script is finished. So now it's next steps. When's it gonna come out? I don't even know when it's gonna start, but it's in the works. It's in the process, and I got a couple other things that I'm engaged in on a business level that the book won't impact anything. The movie might for sure. On some of my coaching, my life coaching stuff that I'm doing. I've got another group that's raising the bar for me, so to speak. And the movie will definitely influence that, the book. So I got a lot of things going on, but yeah, and I still got like four more books to write. And I'm like, geez, I don't think I'm ever gonna get them done this lifetime. No, I don't think I'm gonna ever get them done, but I'm gonna try. Um, yeah, it's all good, man. Staying busy and enjoying every day like it's the last one,
Fuck
having
yeah,
fun.
brother. Yeah. So yeah, we await to see what Trump does in LA. But yeah, Dale, for right now, let's wrap this up. This will be up tomorrow. I'll text it to you, and as always, it's great shooting the shit. Appreciate your time, and till next time, dog. Thank you
All right,
so
brother.
much. All right, buddy. Take care, guys. Thanks
Recording
for watching.
stopped.
Take care, everybody. God bless. Peace.